Hey everyone, welcome back to Requiem Radio. This is season 4, and I have a lot of things to share with you and a lot of plans that we're having for the future that I'm very excited with. First off, season 4 is going to have 16 guests on instead of the traditional 12 per season. Looking forward to that. We're going to see how it works out that. Also, we are now having a website in the works that we're going to have published online. With that, you could find some merch that we're planning to make on the future. We're also going to be sharing on there. So make sure to check that out. Definitely is going to love it. Also, I am excited to announce that we have 2 sponsors. So one of them is going to be Purple Political Breakdown. I'm sure you guys remember him from season 3. We interviewed him, really solid guy, talks about politics. We liked hitting it off. And if you haven't seen that episode yet, definitely check out his channel because he interviewed myself and Hazy. And we're going to be interviewing him for season 4 in the podcast. Second guest that we're having sponsors from is from Black Monk Rosary. Really great Catholic account, really good content when it comes to the Rosary. Having them on the show to discuss what is the Rosary. But most importantly of all, I'm extremely thankful and humbled to have them as our sponsor as well. They have really good handcrafted Rosary products. I love them to death. They're beautiful. They're firm. They're not too bulky, but they're also not too loose or they break. So for all my Catholic listeners, you know what I'm talking about. And I am ready to get this knocked out of the park and into the road. It's going to be amazing. And with that, without further ado, I also want to bring up Hazy, who's with me today for our pilot episode of season 4. Hazy, what's up, man?
How you doing? I'm so glad that we actually have gotten as far as we did. I could never imagine that we would be on season 4, let alone have sponsors. But I'm gracious to have them and to be sponsoring this show and the continuation of the content that we hope that will only improve in quality from here on out.
Yeah, that's something I've definitely been noticing too. Like with every passing season, we're getting more into a flow of things and getting better at what we're doing. And it's funny because we were talking offline about this a few days ago, but I just asked you the questions like, hey, did you ever even see us making it this far? And it's funny thinking, all of this started from me and you talking on a space and me being like, oh, he's a pretty cool guy. And says, you know what? I always wanted to do a podcast. Why not? So I reached out to you and I believe you talk about that as well for season 1, like the first pilot episode for that. But yeah, I'm very happy at how far we're going and I'm looking for us to go even further in the future and for every season for us to be expanding more and more and more.
Yes, that's basically the idea. It's quite interesting how people can incidentally be encountering one another and see how grounded they are. I'm extremely apprehensive about interacting with people on the social spheres in general, but I think that it's rare that you meet somebody that really kind of seems very down to earth and grounded and wears a heart on the sleeves. And regardless of political predilections that people might have, they're willing to look at their side of the discussion and yearn to understand the other side of whatever they might be discussing rather than be dismissive and be willing to engage on a more meaningful level. I am someone of that sort of like rigor of not wanting to lie, dismiss, or even just honestly portray some people. I believe there was a friend of yours a while back ago that happened to be dismissed and had people falsify DMs that he had with another individual, and I had to step up, even if I didn't agree with the individual. I just think that falsifying information for the purposes of making him look like a predator was such an insidious action that I couldn't just allow it to occur while acknowledging and knowing it to be false in nature. So I'm glad to have met you, and it's been quite an exceptional ride to even do something like this. I've never done a podcast, let alone been on a season continuously amping it up and having the grandiose episodes we've had, including a monstrous of a debate panel, or having power scalers that I found to be interesting and have been digesting the content ever since, like Mysterious Weeb. So, yes, it's been quite the adventure to see how all this content has been made and how we've gotten better at just having easygoing conversations like the one we're having now.
Yeah, definitely. And if you were to tell me like 3 years ago, like, hey, eventually you're going to be running a podcast, and not only are you going to be running a podcast, but you're going to be having guests on who are going to talk about things like, political theory, talking about like religion. You're going to have PhD professors talking about, philosophy. You're going to have people talking about like oil rigs, like all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, wow, like I never thought, I'd be like, dude, you're like pulling my leg. That's not going to happen. But speaking of, I wanted to ask you in regards to season 3, Out of the 12 episodes we've done, were there any notable ones that you really enjoyed doing? Because I
Season
think the
three,
Kierkegaard episode was pretty good. That was a nice one.
yeah, the Kierkegaard episodes actually, if I had to pick a favorite out of all, also the Classical Odyssey episode was really good as well. I think in terms of us having a conversation about art, since I don't think there's a lot of conversations about art and the innate nature of what are the activators as to what motivates us to create art, what asks us to replicate what it means to make art, what even art is art, and what makes it beautiful, are a myriad of subject matters that can be exhaustively explored and don't seem to have a simplistic answer, since while the urge to do so might be incidental, how and what it could be provided to the public at large as a commentary of society can be infinite and never finite. So that was the episode personally for me. I enjoyed it a lot, but I also loved our Hinduism episode where you just flex your muscles and really ask some engaging questions that I thought truly pushed our guests to really ponder the subject matters extensively, and they surely showed to the audience they had a plethora of evidence and knowledge about the subject matter at hand. And for you, what was episodes that really stuck out to you, or are they on par with what I mentioned here?
Yeah, I definitely say the Classical Odyssey episode is a really good one that we did. I always love talking about art, and I'd like to have more guests in the future to discuss that. It's always going to be a fun topic. I'd say for me, I really enjoyed doing the Uncovering Darko episode where we actually had a literal investigative journalist on our show and someone else had a lot of information on that. Because the episode, I think I already said, and it was a little bit more personal because of like this scenario. But that really was a pretty popular episode we done. Another one I enjoyed a lot. I'd have to say having Tweetathon on and talking about, Parmenides and the ancient Greeks. Because of all the episodes we've done up to this point, I've in season 3, I think that was the one that pushed me to like what is my mental caliber for like this subject or like interviewing and things like that. Because that was a pretty technical episode talking about like the ancient philosophers and stuff. But is a question for you. So I know you have, I believe, 2 guests of your own that you chose to get on the show. Could you tell us a little bit of a preview about them? Like what's interesting about those guys?
But when it comes to just leftists or left-leaning content creators, I think I've fallen short with providing the guests a myriad of ideas that could be understood from left-leaning content creators and figures that I adore, and as to people I think reflect somewhat to a degree of how I've come to conclusion about my ideas, and as to well some of the more fringe ideas of leftism that I don't think people are often privy to. When it comes to well Econ or Echo Boy, Tech Bro. He's an interesting individual. He's one of the first people that informed me of the philosophy and ideology that drives people to believe in the Earth's value and the exhaustive materials that are part of it, thus prescribing a intrinsic value to how we should be taking care of this planet, the anomaly that it exists as, and the promise of ensuring its life indefinitely to an infinite future, knowing we will possibly never encounter another place that is Earth ever again. They did a video exhaustively explaining this in the chapter 1, and they haven't uploaded again about this video, but I would highly advise people to do so and check out them on social media, and they will be coming here to expound upon many of the ideas that I'm giving only a brief understanding of, but hopefully you'll be intrigued, and when they do show up for our episode, I'm sure that you'll be quite entertained by the episode. Another person we have on is more of a, I would say, a bit of a layman, the direct opposite, but still has very fervent and strong political beliefs. Grant is somebody who did a lot of debates early on during the anti-SCW spear time period. But one of the things I thought that was the most endearing about his personality and the way he behaved is that not only did he do debates, but he did an extensive amount of research about what people talked about with him in a lot of videos. Meaning that not only did he just exchange ideas about the disagreements he had with individuals, he was willing to research and be proven potentially wrong. That is an admirable trait, no matter how dogmatic you might be about your particular beliefs or ideas, or unconvinced by the other side as to what they believe. So having him on and having him constantly up to date as to whatever social discussion, whether that be policy and democratic voting in local areas, he's just a good person to have as a casual individual and a layman when it comes to the discussion of the political landscape as it exists currently. And I think he's a very good faith engager when it comes to just the discussion at large when it comes to the opposing side as well. So those are the two people that I brought on to the table for season 4. I know I've been lacking in that regard, but I hopefully you guys will enjoy what I brought to the table for this season.
No, and I'm glad you're bringing him forward because a lot of people would ask me when, especially guests I'm having on, what type of podcast you run, and they'll be like, "Whoa, is it a right wing podcast? Is it a left wing podcast?" And I'm like, "Nah." See it almost like Joe Rogan. I just get like whoever I find to be really interesting on that I enjoy talking to. I think they have a cool idea because like I'm okay having guests, even though I'm right wing, who are like leftists, but they're genuine people who actually care because it's weird, but the older I get, the less I care about the whole tribalistic left right. And the more I look at, is this person genuinely trying to help others or is he only in here for his own interest type thing? And it's kind of like I could disagree with people, but at least I could like know that they are being sincere in like their beliefs and they genuinely think that like what they're doing is going to help people. So that's something I always find admirable, especially in others. But for that Echo guy as well, hope I'm saying his name right. He's into like communitarianism stuff, right? Because I'm actually gonna look forward to like talking to him because that's a lot of political
Yes, he
theory
is.
that I've read. Yeah, I've
Yes.
read pretty heavy on Sandel and a lot of his work on that stuff. So I'd be interested to see like what questions I could dig with him.
Yes, he's
But
extensively, he's very well read and he resides predominantly in more philosophical discussions and leftism discourse. So I cannot wait to bring him on just for a brief discussion since I do hold him in a very high regard and it seems like he's one of the few people that can provide an accessible understanding of philosophy from a leftist purview.
yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of, so I'd like to get into I believe what we were discussing offline earlier. We were talking about the whole In Praise of Shadows fiasco and the whole Wendy Goon thing. And I was just wanting to get your thoughts on that, but first, like, let the audience like know some of that stuff as well. So you want to tackle like both, where we just talk about some of it, but also go like, hey, here's this and this.
Absolutely. We can just start off with who Praises of Shadow is. There is a collective on the internet I'm sure that most people are aware of. When people make content of a particular genre or style, there happens to be a community that starts to envelop it. Naturally, whether that be commentary, art commentators, the beauty community, the drama community, and this is no different when it comes to horror films. Not only are people horror commentators and analysis, but there are communities within those. And with that understood, there becomes cliques or people who are driven to ostracize those who they believe to be bad faith actors. We will now be able to introduce to you in Praise of Shadows, a person who is not only a video essayist, but someone who predominantly analysis is given directly to horror-oriented movies. When his recent video came out about conservatism, not only did he describe the notion that there is no way that conservatives can understand horror movies in general, but he notes that there's a almost cognitive dissonance that exists within the conservative framework and predominantly white people who are far more privileged that they could never ascertain or understand the horrors that are often invoked by most horror movies within the genre, thus believing that Wendigoon, the person who the video is predominantly about, could not be a active agent in analyzing a lot of this content, but someone who should be actively discouraged and advocate to be ostracized from the community for a lot of the reasons that I'll allow Solo to discuss briefly here.
Yeah, so what Praise of Shadows too, another thing, he is a bread tuber. And for people who don't know, bread tubers are leftist YouTubers who do, like Hazy said, some video essays. But the issue that put In Praise of Shadows in a lot of heat is he posted a 3.5 hour long video, like Hazy said, called Bad Conservatism. and it was broken up into chapters where he was doing what's equivalent of a hit piece on people. And there's nothing wrong with doing hit pieces if you actually have a genuine reason and like evidence to back it up. So, like an example would be, I don't know, Boogie, 2498, I believe is his user. Like when he was doing a lot of like shady stuff and people exposed him, they had a lot of his direct messages and things like that. But for Praise of Shadows, what he did that put him in such hot water is he made very broad accusations to people who are very prominent accounts with little to no evidence. A lot of his evidence was, I went on like a Reddit board and I saw someone comment this. So he quote said like, this is largely accepted on the internet, even though we don't know if it's true or false. So he was basically insinuating that these people were doing X or Y without fully telling you the story of what's going on. And what's worst of all, where he doubled down on a lot of this stuff, was that he said a lot of things like people in the Appalachian Mountains, basically. So like referring to Wendigoon. And for people who don't know, Wendigoon, super great guy. He does conspiracy theory videos and he happens to be Christian. And he said, well, he's from the Appalachians, and anyone from the Appalachians should always be assumed to be racist first until proven otherwise. And then he'd also double down and say crazy things like, you know, being conservative is inherently a problem, and those people should be ostracized not only online, but in real life too. And when he said that, he basically lit a fire on... Shoonhead did a good video on it where she says it's an attack on the normal guy, where that's literally what Wendigoon is. He's just a normal dude who loves conspiracy stuff and things like that. But yeah, so word of advice for people who are looking to get into like content creation: if you are going to take a shot at someone, make sure you don't miss, and make sure that you have a lot of stuff to back it up, because you are going to have people scrutinize you. And for Praise of Shadows, what he did, he ended up deleting the video because it was that atrocious, and just sit in his like own Discord servers, like crying about it and doubling down, saying he's still right. Which is like, dude, you killed your entire YouTube channel because you're being prideful and not doing research on some things and just making like insinuations. But what about you, Hazy? Is there anything else you want to add on to that?
Beautiful thing about a video analysis or video essays is that there are exceptional video essays. I would say that some made by Patricia Taxon are exceptional, and they discuss videos made by the Dishonored Wolf or Rags, for instance. These are made by a left-leaning content creator, but these videos were made with a genuine and earnest engagement of the content as is. It didn't just, and it was specific and poignant about what it was discussing. It decided to discuss forced diversity as a concept and went through all the logical pitfalls that he believed existed in the argumentation. Then we have people like Jack Saint, who also is a leftist and political commentator. They talked about Moon and how they are thieving from other content creators, essentially making a video essay content trough where the substance of the content is lacking due to the research and them just misappropriating a lot of talking points with a veneer of conservatism, conspiracy, with a lot of fear mongering about China, as well as the concern of TikTok in its existence. It's not my particular cup of content if I were just to talk about Moon very briefly, but I would say that Jack Saint is an exceptional writer and has demonstrated the ability to show the amount of research that went into the video. No matter, even if you at the end of the day disagree with what they said, you can see their research. They demonstrate and present their homework to let you know that this is not just coming out of nowhere. It's just not forced out of the ether. Whereas in the Shadows video, the problem is that there was nothing that could be directly ascertained from Winnegoon. So there's a lot of extrapolations. They speak about Brandon Buckingham and then accuse them of being a rapist. The problem is that this was a lie propagated by Sneeko when he made a comment about, well, Sneeko's girlfriend being very open in the relationship and being willing to have intimate transactions with a bunch of people outside of Sneeko. And Sneeko was one of the people that participated in viewing these situations. This is a joke that they played upon. But this was not only misappropriated, but the lack of evidence in the fact that this was just perpetuated within Praise of Shadows video demonstrated the lack of research altogether. And when there wasn't something that they couldn't directly espouse to or provide an example of, they just started doing one thing that I think most video essays shouldn't do, is a heavy level of speculation in the substitute of evidence, in the substitute of research, in the substitute of a silver bullet in what they were talking about. They would go, well, Wendigoon was part of Boogaloo Boys at one point, but due to the extremist beliefs, they disconnected themselves from the movement. They used this instance as a justification to go on to say that everything that has ever occurred as a byproduct of the Boogaloo Boys was the fault of Wendigoon, despite the fact that Wendigoon has gone out of his way to actively discourage the movement and say that they are no longer associated with it. And we don't even have, from what they're showing, any strong evidence that the tragedies that have occurred as a byproduct of the Boogaloo Boys were endorsed or helped in any capacity by Wendigoon. But this level of uncharitable interpretations and insidious implications is all this video has to operate off of. And when you use this level of speculation, the worst thing that can occur is someone providing an alternative explanation that blows away what you're saying with the same level of sound reasoning that can operate off of the accessible information. For example, just off of what I just described to you here, someone could easily said, couldn't we still argue that even if he contributed to the group's existence, he doesn't endorse any of the mentioned actions or transgressions that have happened as a byproduct of the Boogaloo Boys? And you using the fact that he wears Hawaiian shirts to show that he's a covert Boogaloo Boy who implicitly still endorses the behavior, couldn't that same level of bad faith rationale be used to argue that you are in fact the Boogaloo Boy since you do wear Hawaiian shirts in the video? Something I thought was worthwhile describing here, but I do not want to dominate all the speaking time here. Solar, is there any particular criticisms that come to the forefront for you when you're discussing the Praise of Shadows video and its inherent flaws?
Yeah, the biggest thing was, like I already said earlier, he would make it's almost like sly jab or comments remarks where he put under his breath and things. Like, I remember he said at one point when bringing up the Boogaloo thing where he said, Wendigoon is a Christian and like many Christians has a dark right-wing past. And I'm like, what was that comment? And like many Christians, like, why are you trying to slide in there basically? Or things where he said like, an apart is like, is being a conservative a problem? Well, yes. And it's just very weird commentary like that. And to me, I think it encapsulates, especially BreadTubers, this like little bubble they're in where they're so void of reality where, I'm sorry, but the world isn't like Twitter. People don't think like that outside of your circles. Like, nobody in real day life is gonna say, you know, being conservative is a genuine like problem to the point where you should ostracize them from like everyday life. Like, it's very strange how like political divisive a lot of these statements were. And again, it's not a good idea to like go down a hit list and attack people and not bring anything forward to it. But I'm sure you guys could look up tons of videos, like Turkey Tom did one as well. There's a myriad of videos talking about In Praise of Shadows that are correcting him and being like, hey, here's this and this. But I think the funniest part, yeah, go ahead.
Right. I just wanted to add on to what you were saying. Even people who are probably the most inoffensive content creators in existence, like Pavel, found himself at the forefront of controversy when he brought them being a conservative or far-right extremist due to them being a gun enthusiast. Just removed from
you know what's crazy about that part where he tried to frame it, and Praise of Shadow said a gun enthusiast who actively he's a gun enthusiast who actively encouraged police killing civilians, and he briefly flashed a thumbnail. If you go and look at what that thumbnail is, and is all of his like category of videos, it's talking about how the cop shot a pedophile. And I'm like, dude, I'm pretty sure if you talk to most normal people and said a cop shot and killed a pedophile, a convicted, confirmed pedophile, they're not going to be like, oh man, that's so horrible. That poor pedophile, why'd he have to die? Most people aren't going to have that reaction. They're going to be like, oh, he was a pedophile, was convicted? Yeah, good riddance. Like, screw him. Like, that's just going to be the normal reaction people are going to have.
Yeah, and to be charitable, I can only imagine that he didn't watch the contents of that video. Otherwise, I can't imagine that he would use this example of all the examples he could have ascertained to say that there was something inherently wrong with defending a child who was actively being harmed in the situation in the context of that particular video. Worst of all, there is a lack of self awareness for him to be so adamantly opposed to the mockery he's gotten in the blowback for some of his videos, where he causes a very explicit political divide in a genre that can be apolitical in nature. Not to say that there aren't conservatives who have made a killing and made a voice and grown in prominence due to their analysis that is inherently more conservative, or leftists who have made video essays that are inherently with a tinge of leftist rigor and commentary within said videos. The problem being here is that the way he goes about it almost feels like fan fiction of sorts. And me and Sola have discussed this at length, but the problem is when he was being criticized for these videos, he says that there's a perception that people often go with that sounds true, but is created off of a false sense of being and is erroneously cobbled together due to people who haven't taken the time to be properly informed about the subject matter and the particular person they're talking about, and then proceeds to release a video of this nature where the most of what he's doing is using an assumption on top of an assumption, or really being extraneous with tenuous evidence of associations to condemn people to a far worse degree, when in actuality all he had to do was simply ask someone a question, and potentially some of his confusions could be alleviated, such as whether or not Winnegoon's following of him was actually a conspiratorial way to inform him that he wanted him to fear about the harassment he was currently getting, rather than just simply asking him if he could potentially make a post, just simply attempting to quell down amount of animosity he was getting due to his criticism of his video. I mean, the fact that Winnegoon even went out of his way when he was in no way obligated to do so, to say, do not speak on my behalf and do not basically besmirch this person's name based on what he said about me. I do not endorse any harassment that has come this person's way. It's very, very infantile, if I could say so myself. There's this weird crybaby mentality. Some leftists and just people on the internet have in the modern day, not just modern day, I'm not going to talk about it as though it's just a uniquely emerging thing. However, the prominence of it is any less annoying, where people will attack your character, describe you in the most insidious nature and ways, but if there is any blowback as a byproduct of their own behavior, they'll talk about how your unwillingness to defend them from the backlash of their own words and actions is a indication of your poor moral character. There's nothing else I can describe it as. Is that alone, that descriptor alone, is nauseating to me. But
Don't forget
again,
the part where he talked about Wendigoon following him, and he's like, "As you see, Wendigoon followed me, and he doesn't follow many people, but only his own circle. That means this is a quiet threat. He's on me. He's watching me." I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? And then you have Wendigoon later comment and be like, yeah, that made a video a while back about Slenderman. I liked it, so I followed him. Like, that's literally his only reasons for following him. And then I'm like, dude, it's like I said, this is just a simple case of what I like to call not touching grass and just, being a normal human. He lacked that capability. Just like go outside, like be normal, like stop with the videos. And
and if you can't,
yeah,
just ask yourself a simple question of what would it take for me to be completely wrong about the line of reason I'm going through? And if you realize that your threshold is almost non-existent and that someone can easily debunk this line of reasoning you've erected, maybe reevaluate your evidence and how you come to the conclusion. For example, if I was to say that the Earth is going to ice over and the temperatures are going to drop down to something similar to when the dinosaurs became extinct, one can only, if one's retort to that could be, but what if the sun comes up tomorrow like it always does? I have no argument against that. I need to reevaluate how I got to the conclusion I did and why I'm there, and as to what evidence I'm using to get there. The fact that he thought that somehow Wendigoon following him was due to some sort of attempt to implicitly inform him of a threat of violence through the harassment he was already getting is so bizarre that all you had to do was simply ask him or inform yourself as to why that was the case. Because many people show that he was accessible to them, and the fact that he followed you on social media meant that he would have been accessible to you as well. This all coming from a person who has already mentioned at length how much his reputation has been damaged and his ability to support himself financially through his channel has been hampered due to the dent in his reputation. I can't imagine why you would jump out the window in this nature. It feels deliberately self-destructive. At least that's the only way it makes sense to me in my head. Like that's the only way I can rationalize it. But some people are just that stupid,
I
unfortunately.
genuinely think he believes this was not going to leave his circle or his atmosphere, and it was just going to be another video. And then it's like a shotgun going back in his face. It reminds me of the Tom and Jerry meme where it's like Tom like stuffing a shotgun, a double-barreled shotgun into like the mouse hole, and the barrel turns, comes out the other end to be pointing directly at his face, and he's smiling about to pull the trigger. That's how you can encapsulate Praise the Shadows in a nutshell.
Yes, and I think it was kind of interesting. I saw some people covering this situation and what had occurred. One of the things that came to the forefront for me, particularly about this, was the following tweet I'll read out here. And the Twitter account user says the following. Damn, this dude just went, hey, just so you know, Wintergoon has some pretty weird political beliefs and associations himself with some scummy people. Basically, everyone is coming for his head for it. Just because you like a YouTuber doesn't mean they're immune to criticisms. To me, this reads dishonestly for a couple of reasons. Not only does it not go into the depth about the magnitude of the claims being made here, but when somebody asks him very directly that, oh, they asked for him to not only be ostracized by the community in of itself, but he also asks that societally people should ostracize him, such as it mentioned by one commenter who says his closing statement was that Wintergoon shouldn't be allowed in polite society because he is clear danger to everyone around him. That's a cute synopsis, though. And then the person replies with, I mean, if you associate yourself with terrible people, you shouldn't be paraded around the horror community as a wholesome, unproblematic being. And then they reply to him saying, and he said he shouldn't be allowed outside. And this is your response? Damn, he said that? Base. This okay, so
Yeah,
it's
it's
one
so
of those
bad.
okay, so wait. Why did you gave us the most milquetoast version of what you actually believe? Like and that's not even you being honest about what you're saying. So I just find myself violently disgusted when people do that. When people keep doing the whole, oh, I'm gonna give you the most tamed, most accessible version of this, to the point where it just becomes blatantly and frequently dishonest about the more extreme aspects of that belief that they would completely and holistically endorse.
Agreed. And let's see. I think we wrapped up everything for that. What else do you want to talk about, or anything else you want to comment on it?
Some of my more closing statements about this is when you become a pariah in that regard, I think if I could provide you any advice, perhaps don't talk on your Discord. There are going to be people who are going to farm you for drama, controversy, or looking for anything else that will allow them to get easy views. Not only was he a channel of 300,000 subscribers, but there's naturally going to be a subsection of the internet that's going to farm you for content knowing you fucked up this severe. There are people who are making content on a daily basis on the internet. If probably think or step back for a minute to think about what you said, because there are obviously people out there that are going to want and desire to make more content about you. Maybe don't make it easy for them to do just that. I mean, think about it. The funniest thing about almost all this is the amount of channels that have come down to discuss them at length. We have Chucky Tom with over 300,000 subscribers, Brandon Buckingham, who has double that on his main channel when we're talking about Tom Dark. And then we have Sean Head, who has 1 million subscribers. I do not understand why you would do this to yourself. But if you stand behind what you believe and what you've said, maybe keep the video up, because not doing so argues the exact opposite of what you're saying. And that's what we can leave off with this topic. But we can also discuss
Really
something
quick
that's
before we do that, just Shout out to both Eudaimonia and Chewin Head for the child. Congratulations, guys, and may God bless you with many more. You guys are both doing great
Congratulations
things.
as
I'm
well.
really
Yes.
happy for you. Yeah. But what else were you gonna say on that?
Yeah. That's all I'll have to say about that in terms of praises of shadows. Perhaps he'll learn from this. I'm not quite sure. Uh, he'll be a bit
I
of a
don't think he
pariah
is
for some.
because I've seen that he's on his own private Discord servers right now, just absolutely molding and like coping and seething and being like, I'm right, everyone else in the world is wrong but me. He's doing that right now. He's just in denial. So I don't think he's gonna learn anything from this.
Yeah, that's definitely unfortunate. Even in his comment, I think his community post, he, in essence, blames the how poorly constructed the video on how upset he was at the time period when he made it, due to some of the statements by others, and there's a lot there's just no accountability in that way of rationalizing why the video was completely shit. Applauded by it, but yeah, that just seems like crying to me. Like, take some accountability and why and what had occurred. Yeah.
Definitely.
We're going to move on from that topic. I think we can discuss something that has also been prevailing and dominating discourse as of recently: Kendrick Lamar and Drake. It's fascinating to me to some degree as somebody who has fallen out of love and favor with his content, musically speaking, when it comes to Drake and how he ended up here. Drake has not only lost a rap beef, which would seem inconsequential to most people because, well, he lost to Pusha T, but I don't think he's ever lost to somebody who had the artistic and popularity as a Kendrick Lamar. So this not only has a stronger magnitude and impact of the mockery he had accrued, but as well as how the culture has drastically shifted to a greater examination of Drake as a whole and what that means to endorse a character of that nature. What is your general thoughts about the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef as it exists and how it's windowed down and the purview of most hip hop heads and how they see it?
Yeah, so on an outside perspective, it definitely caught me off guard where he said like he came out of nowhere. But actually it was like went down a rabbit hole and realized those two have been beefing since like 2011 or 2012. And that Drake's always been like the off guy on it. But it's kind of funny because how they were describing the whole situation in the short term is that the only reason it's being brought up now and not earlier is because for a while Drake was seen as like, on top of the mountain, as in like he was the face of the industry at that moment. And you can't really do anything to a guy who's making good music in that industry because he's keeping everyone paid basically and happy. But once he started to get older, produce less music and fall off a little bit, is when things like really shot up in his face in a way. But to your knowledge, really quick, because I'm a bit rusty on it, what kicked off all of this? Was it the J. Cole line that went to Kendrick, that went to Drake, and then J. Cole dropped out or something?
I think the biggest catalyst to most of this was Kendrick Lamar's Control verse. Remember, a while back ago, Drake and Kendrick Lamar did collaborate with each other. Poetic Justice and Kendrick Lamar even showed up on Drake's album Take Care. However, then Kendrick Lamar had thrown down the gauntlet. Not only did he mention of Tyler Creator, J. Cole, Big Crit, ASAP, all these individuals, and Kendrick Lamar was a cultural shockwave that people who weren't mentioned felt insulted by not being mentioned in the song. We had Joey Ortiz, the member of the Slaughterhouse, discussing in his own track in response to Control, stating that you don't feel like you need to acknowledge my clique. We're hip hop, and it's like there was a myriad of people who spoke about this. Even Papoose. There was so many rappers and hip hop heads that exhaustively discussed it for years on end. So much so that the song Holy Key that was on DJ Khaled's album Holy Key, Big Sean rapped his ass off. There's no other way to describe it. He rapped so exceptionally because he was on another song with Kendrick Lamar and he got washed again. But that speaks to the respect and the penmanship of Kendrick Lamar and the respect that Kendrick Lamar as an artist has always had within the game that Drake desired. Drake has spoken exhaustively about how much he never felt as though he was accepted by the culture at large. Despite him dominating the circuit and being on the top charts for nearly a decade, well, over a decade actually at this time, and having almost as many hits as Michael Jackson, Drake has never felt accepted by the larger culture, as in he's never been credited as an artist, as an artistic individual, the same way that we do so for Kendrick Lamar, who's won us a Pulitzer Prize. So naturally, these two have been going back and forth, having dissing each other through songs like 100, the BET Cypher, where Kendrick Lamar said, and nothing's been the same since they took the sensitive rapper back in his pajama clothes. High five. Joke's on you. High five. I'm bulletproof. Shots will never penetrate. Pin a tail on the donkey, you been a fake. And these are just lines that he directed towards Drake. And so the game has always existed with subliminals. However, one of the most interesting facets of all of this is that while they sneakily diss each other, on the other hand, Drake has continuously shown love publicly to Kendrick Lamar, speaking about congratulating him on some of his accomplishments. And even when there was comments mentioning that they should collab one day, Drake has responded to those comments saying they should. So there is a bit of, at least in my personal interpretation, envy on the side of Drake that Kendrick Lamar is respected in a way in the game that he will never receive, despite his dominance over the charts. Inevitably, this all came to a catalyst. I mean, the catalyst of all of this was like that because it was so obvious as to who he was in reference to in the song. Because J. Cole had said on the song First Person Shooter Mode, everyone steppers, then I'm about to clean up my plate. Obviously, the last album made by Kendrick Lamar was The Big Steppers. So this feels like a subliminal shot towards Kendrick Lamar, who was a part
Is
of the
that
Big
true about
Three.
Drake too? Because I've heard like Drake is known for not outright dissing people, but doing like sly underhand disses in a lot of his
Yes,
songs.
it's been a common faux pas within hip hop to sneak diss until someone's willing to either name drop somebody or say something that is so highly referential to the individual in question that there is no mistaking the lyrics. Think of a cannabis who showed up on a song with LL Cool J, and even though he never directly said his name in the initial controversy that transpired, he said, "I'm known for snatching mics," which at the time period, Kuji had a gigantic tattoo of a microphone on his arm. So to him, that was a subliminal met for him, even though he never
Okay,
said his
so
name.
sneak disses are things that you wouldn't know within the context of a song. You need more context outside of like the music to understand. Would that
Yeah,
be making sense? Yeah.
sneak dissing is best described as not directly saying someone's name, but providing enough context clues that one can infer that it's about that individual. And
Okay, that makes
so
more sense. Yeah.
socially, that's the biggest problem for a rapper in the situation. You could retaliate on a track, but if you make a diss track, you're announcing to the public at large that, hey, I do not like this person. And while the other person can look like a good person in that situation, like, hey, I didn't diss him first, he dissed me. And most people are going to interpret it as such. They're going to look at it as, well, he dissed me first. I didn't say anything about him. So you end up looking paranoid. This is how Drake ended up defending Joe Budden because the song called No Shopping released with a snippet where he says the following. He says, pump, pump, pump it up. You let me turn into the guy that you almost was. Everyone knows that Joe Budden has a song called Pump It Up. And so Joe Budden went
Oh,
on a
okay.
this campaign of 3 tracks against Drake, basically trying to pull a back to back. But I think his tracks were amazing. I think the whole trilogy is exceptional, and I don't think people speak about them enough. But to most people, Joe Budden just looked paranoid. No one knew what he was talking about. And
It's
since
one of those things
this,
where you won't know unless you're in the end, where you know what's going on and
yes,
stuff.
unless you're very much invested into Joe Budden's discography, and since the song "Pump It Up" came out almost a decade ago, most people didn't know what he was referring to and what his malfunction with Drake was. So Drake got Joe Budden to look crazy to the public at large. Thus, when Drake eventually came out with the song, it looked like he was mocking Joe Budden for overreacting rather than Joe Budden being aware of the song's existence and retaliating like justifiably so.
Yeah, and speaking on like overreacting too, I think it's a bit hypocritical on Drake's part because if I do remember correctly, Kendrick did have a song early on in his career where he basically was talking about how he wants to be the best rapper, and he name dropped like a bunch of people saying it's like I love you guys, but I'm gonna like be better than all of you type thing.
Yes, control.
And a
Yeah,
lot of
when he
yeah, control,
yeah.
thank you. And in that when that happened, apparently a lot of those people who were on that tracker mentioned were very honored because that meant to Kendrick that's who he saw as in these guys are the best in the industry right now. So they took it as a sign of respect, like friendly competition. All did except Drake, where Drake got very upset about that. And he's like, I can't believe you do that to me. It's like I brought you up in this and that's how you betray me. I'm like, dude, if like he mentions 10 other people and you're the only guy reacting this way, you should take a look at you first type thing. And it's weird because I don't
Yeah, he
want to go as
basically cried
far
about it.
as like,
He
yeah,
he basically
I'm not,
cried about it.
yeah, yeah. No, it's
Go
like
ahead.
I don't want to go as far as like to say that Drake has like near sociopathic tendencies, but it's almost like he has this idea of I need to have a pitch perfect like perception of me to the public, and I can't have even the slightest bit of dirt on me to like muddy that. Always have to have this like image basically. And like you see that of a lot of celebrities, even outside of rap too. Like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, for example, he does a lot of crazy stuff where he lies for like no reason when he doesn't have to lie, and he does a lot of that to have this public image where everyone has to like me type thing. Which I never understood that because I'm like, look, if you are going to be in the public, if people are going to look at you, you are bound to have people who do not like you. That's a universal fact. Whatever genre you're getting in, whatever hobby, whatever anything you're getting in, if you become big enough, you're gonna have your fans, you're gonna have your haters. That's simple as that. Like, and it's like weird because you'll see people, like I said earlier, Drake, really not wanting to have any haters, and it's just really strange to me.
Touching on that very briefly, I think that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has had exceptional career through acting and being a wrestler. But the problem is with maximizing your likability, it often comes with not wanting to engage with anything that could be perceived as offensive. This is magnified and highlighted the best in his Joe Rogan appearance, where he just kind of rattles off the same amount of talking points with nothing new and meaningful to like bring to the plate. And his Joe Rogan interview is basically a softball of sorts, where Joe Rogan does bring up some
It feels like he's
controversial
moving on
sentiment.
pincushions in that whole interview, basically. Like he's
Yeah,
walking on eggshells. I'm like, dude, like it's just really
yeah,
strange because he didn't always act like this. Like you said earlier, he had a very good wrestling career. If you look at clips of him from the 90s, people didn't know that, but that whole character he made, The Rock, originally was a heel. And for people who don't know wrestling, a heel means someone who would basically play the role as a villain in wrestling. So for most of Dwayne The Rock Johnson's career, he was a big F you in your face, heel type character. Like he literally thrived off of people hating him. That's how he became a successful wrestler. People would watch him because they'd watch to see him fail. And then it's just strange seeing him like 180 once he gets into acting. Like, oh, everyone has to like me now. And it's just like, dude, it's like artificial and fake. Like, don't be fake, you know?
yeah. Even to the point where he's stating in contract that he cannot lose, that like the no lose clause, that he can neither be
I've
represented
heard
as
about that.
someone.
Is that a real thing? Does he really have a contract where it's like a no lose clause for any of his movies? Where he
Yes.
can't. That is embarrassing. Imagine being an actor being like, I could be on any movie, I just can't lose anything. It's like, well, why? Like,
And it's sad, and I think it's like definitely stifled his ability to be more creative in his movies. For example, his most recent run within the WWE, he's playing more of an heel, and that made a lot of people invested. And it makes you forget how much of a good actor Dwayne Rock Johnson is. When you see him play a villain for some parts of that run, you get invested again. Like, wow, yeah, you're an exceptional actor. I don't know why you would limit your pool of what you can do based on that alone. So, again, when it comes to Drake, another thing I wanted to bring up to what you said earlier is that people were asking him about the control verse, and Kendrick Lamar was very blatant about it. He said, "This is competition, and they should know what time it is." He brings that up at the beginning of it to show that he is a competitive individual, and he says the similar things even on his most recent album. Talks about him being an egotistic fuck. So this is not something that's unique the prominent in his character. I think a lot of rappers do perceive themselves as the best, and not just metaphorically. They don't perceive the competition as friendly. They want to be better than others, and what does that mean if you're not willing to test your iron against others or judge your catalog against others and say, let's compare and contrast and see who comes out on top? So Drake was one of the few people when people were asking him about the Kendrick Lamar controversy, he says, oh, people are not going to be talking about it years from now, where, well, objectively speaking, he was incorrect about that. But more importantly, Drake kind of seemed bewildered by it, not the way people who want to see competition out of their favorite artists would be. If they understood it as competition, then most people even entertained it and responded in their own ways. But
So,
suffice it
question
to
for you,
say,
really quick though. I
go
actually am
ahead.
curious on this.
Go ahead.
I do know during the beef, there was a lot of shots thrown where Kendrick basically either inferred or outright said he's a pedophile. Do you think there's some truth to these accusations? Because I think about the Millie Bobby Brown thing, how he got really close to her when she was underage, and that was a bit weird, you know?
Here's the thing. When it comes to Drake, I'm gonna answer that first before I talk about anything else. But I think with the Meet the Grams track and Family Matters, both of them had accusations thrown at each other.
Drake
Kendrick
called him a
Lamar
wife
was
beater, right?
wife beater and talked about his infidelities, which the infidelities aspect of it all, Kendrick Lamar had admitted to doing so. But the other aspect of him beating his wife, even Drake doesn't speak about that with much conviction. He says, when you put your hands on your wife, is it because she's taller than you? It just felt as though he's speculating about a rumor that happened more than a decade ago, and the only thing that we have to ascertain that potentially could have happened is a rumor that occurred at a spot. The fact of the matter is that thousands upon millions of people are currently watching this whole controversy transpire, and people can find little to nothing. Whereas, granted, people can't find your daughter, and that basically, if the whole track was nothing more than his daughter, most people would say that Meet the Grams was a terrible track. But again, Kendrick Lamar is a storyteller. He talks about the absence of within his son's life, Adonis. He talks about Drake's pervasive and perverted nature as being a successful artist and how he's abandoned his family, similar to what his father did, Dennis. And he most importantly talks about how, in some regards, he talks about how Drake likes young women, some people in his collective do as well, which can be supported by the fact that Baca got a weird case of sex trafficking, and so you kind of question that as well. But in terms of public information that we know about Drake and his questionable history with people who are underage, we have the one incident of him appearing on stage with a 70-year-old who, when initially he asked them about their age after caressing on them for minutes on end, they told him that they were underage. And then Drake still kissed on them when he was 23 years old, which may not feel all that weird, but then there's instances with Kylie Jenner when she was like 16 and Drake was 27 around that time. Or we can look towards Millie Bobby Brown and him privacy conversating with her. On top of him meeting girls and them meeting up with
It's just
Drake, or
so
Drake followed.
weird. Yeah.
Another thing is that Drake followed a person who was just getting out of high school, and he's like, oh, he followed you? How did he find out to follow you? He's like, oh, sometimes Drake goes to basketball games, high school girl basketball games, which also comes across as a bit questionable. Again, these are all things that Drake has done. And or going out on a date with a girl who was born in 2000s and he met up with her in person in 2016 and then went out on a date with her officially at 2018, which may have just been a little play date. I'm willing to give the possibility of it not being the case. But on albums like Scorpio, he says, "Oh, you were older, like we should have waited, but you're old enough." Like those are weird lines as well. But the line for me that always comes across as a bit questionable is him talking about Sierra Young, looks like the King of Diamonds. For those who aren't aware, the school he describes on Daddy's Home is a high school, and he said it looks like the King of Diamonds, which is known as a strip club. So there's a lot of weird lines, and I could say fully and confidently, do I know definitively that Drake is a predator or is into people underage? No. there's just a lot of stuff that I wouldn't blame anybody for coming to that conclusion with. Like,
I
what this?
still find it strange. Did you see that one tweet he made in like 2016 where he said, "This Predator movie lame as hell. Put me in there and I'll show him a real Predator."
Again,
Like
yes,
he
there's a lot of
tweeted
stuff.
that, and then I was like, what did you mean by that? Like, what did you mean by that?"
Or Billie Eilish when she finally turned 18, he's like in her comment section, like,
Jeez.
yes. I'm like, there's a lot of things he's done in the public sphere where I wouldn't be comfortable saying with a strong amount of conviction that he's a predator, but I cannot defend like this level of evidence. Like it looks bad optically. So even if there isn't a silver bullet of finding out he's on Chris Hansen one day, the problem is that there's enough for people to sensibly and comfortably come to the conclusion that Drake's a weirdo around underage girls and young women. So when Kendrick Lamar released that track and there was some objectively true things and he name dropped people, they're not like us just hits harder afterwards because not only did he stand on that,
Had a
but there
nice
was
beat too. It was nice.
yes. I can't imagine having one of the most top charting songs calling me a pedophile is wild. Even in terms of accusations, you could let's say that 100% it was true that Kendrick Lamar beat his wife. People would 100% every single time take that over being accused of being a pedophile. Just no, it's
Yeah.
gonna. This you can't
They
beat
not
that.
like us. They not like us. I'm like,
You
yeah.
you
Just
you
listening,
can
vibing
come
out to
back
the
from being
song.
you can come back from being someone who may have domestically abused your significant other, like Chris Brown has. You can't come back from being a you can't come back from being
Oh
and
gosh.
Drake went out with a whimper with the Hard Part 6, making a very questionable argumentation as to why the song Beat the Grams and They Not Like Us doesn't work, stating that we fed you the information. We knew you would go with these allegations because you have such a strong animosity to me. Obviously, trying to paint himself as this master manipulator, something that Kendrick Lamar often described him as. But the sensible thing about this doesn't seem to make any sense. If I wanted to feed somebody fake information, I would be posting about it, correct? You would show where they get the information from and who they heard it from, correct? Which Drake didn't do. And more importantly, if I wanted to trick somebody into a false narrative about me, the last thing I would want to do is have one of the most respected artists within rap call me a pedophile. You what? I'm sorry,
Yeah, you
no.
don't. Do you think? All right, real quick question. How do you see both rappers' careers going forward from this? Do you think it's going to be back to normal, or do you think there's going to be some permanent damage at all from either of them?
I think there was a bit of permanent damage for Drake. The biggest problem for Drake is that people have always talked about him being a bit of a culture vulture. So when push came to shove with someone who is probably the best representative of the culture, of a black sound, of the struggles, of the soul expressed within the complexion of the society that they reside within, the discriminations, the politics, and imbuing himself with the soul of black struggles, to turn around in that situation and say, you're always rapping like you're trying to set the slaves free, it just comes across as tonally deaf and only further ostracizes him and solidifies a lot of people's points about him being a culture vulture, that he steals other people's sounds, that he absorbs sonically what everybody else is doing, that there isn't a person that we can point to when it comes to who Drake is. So when they call him a colonizer, it is not for the fact that he comes from another country or that he's biracial. It is the idea that he operates in that mind state of taking and appropriating other people's sounds for his own benefit. Look no further than the OVO sweatshop, where he benefits majority from a lot of the people who were under his branch, but no one has a significant career that we can even speak of, which it makes sense when we look at someone like The Weeknd and why he never signed to the label. I think that there's going to be a strong magnitude and effect on Drake's career for some years to come. I don't know how he's going to exactly dig himself out of this hole, but culturally speaking, there's been a platonic shift in his perception as an individual. Well, Kendrick Lamar, he's the boogeyman at this point. J. Cole dropped out, and Drake got
I think you meant
decimated
to
in
say
this.
J Fold. I'm just
J.
curious. You meant
Cole,
to
J. Origami, J.
say, yeah, he folded. No, I
And
like
he's
the
like,
memes coming out of it where it says Drake, you're a wife beater, Kendrick, you're a pedophile. And it says meanwhile J. Cole, and it shows a guy just like living life on like a mountain, just like doing his thing, just in the wilderness, walking around, touching grass, like just being vibing. And I'm like, oh, so that's what's J. Cole doing right now. He's like, I
then
got
he
out of this before it got hot.
I think everybody was like, wait, this is just a competition. This is gonna be a friendly sparring match. That's all that's gonna happen. But the fact that within 24 hours of dropping 7 minute drill, he was like, I'd like to apologize for my outbursts, it's
I find it funny because I saw a meme and it was from the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate like intro where it shows Shulk. I believe it's Shulk. It's one of those Swords characters where he has a split vision where he sees like a couple seconds in the future and he immediately sees everyone just dying instantly. He's like, and he turns around and says, "Wait, run!" And someone said this was J. Cole right before this whole thing popped off, where he's like, "I got to get out now."
yeah, yeah. Especially when I think it was rumored that Schoolboy Q informed him like how messy this was going to get, and he's like, you know what?
He's like,
I'm
"Oh,
gonna
oh,
do
it's
this.
like that now. Okay, yeah, I'm out."
Yeah, like you know what? I think it's best in my best interest too, because in terms of the big three, in terms of the most influential, most respected people out there, in terms of the hip hop game, who have some of the highest selling, but also um, dominant within the game itself, to apologize, it seems like the best investment that J. Cole made in this entire thing. He's like, you know what? Everyone's going to. I'm gonna feel vindicated in a couple of weeks after this is all transpired. But everyone was looking forward to J. Cole's next release, and Grippy is not doing what. Dang, let Nas down again. Unfortunate, quite unfortunate. Grr. Have you heard that song yet, Grippy?
I have not yet. It's funny
Yeah,
because between you and I, most of this stuff I'm getting from my younger brother who hyped me up about this whole like beef. And he's the one who's been feeding me information and videos and like the whole back and forth. Like I'm what you call an old head. I just like listen to MF Doom. Like that's the main dude I just vibe with. Like him or like old Kanye, things like that.
that is
Like
yeah, I get that, and yeah, because like
it's
some
not
people are
because
not.
I have a disdain or dislike for modern rap. It's just there's so many new modern rappers. I don't want to spend the time and investment to go through all of them, listen to all of their albums to see which one I really vibe with or like. I'm just chilling with what I got now. Like,
Yeah, and I understandably so, due to how bloated albums are
yeah,
nowadays.
the rap
Like,
industry is really bloated right now. There's a lot of different people, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to do this. Like, because it's just
especially
so
when
much
we
easier to be a rapper nowadays than it was in like the 2010s or 2000s and stuff.
absolutely, I think that's a positive. But my only problem with
It's a
the
double-edged sword,
collection
I'd
of
say.
releases
Yeah.
is that usually people are releasing bloated albums with like 20 track listings at times. Like, I'm sorry, most of the time period, there's no excuse for 20 tracks. Usually, it's never like I'm never like, ah, yes, you needed every single one of these tracks. Even people who defend Certified Lover Boy, people are like, oh, the album was great. They like 7 songs. I'm like, that album is like 20 tracks. You like less than 50% of that album. How can you say you love that album when you lack less than 50% of it? It's one of the things that kind of perplexes me just a bit. But I just wanted to bring this up. You know what's pretty bad when a legend in the game currently is being mocked the way J. Cole is when TikTok gets a hold of him and making fun of the fact that he says, "My girl's got a new nickname. It's Grippy. I like that thing because it's grippy." I'm like, and everyone's
Dude,
just
I'm
like,
like, dude, what are you doing? Yeah, it's just
"You're
weird.
you're you're 30 now." It was like, "Bro, you
No,
pushing
he's a
me.
grown ass man too,
You're
saying weird
grown
stuff
ass."
like that about women. I'm like, dude, calm down. Like, get help. Like,
It's like when
but
Drake said,
yeah,
"You're not down with gangy," and I'm like, "You're you are too old to be using phrase terminology and phrases like that." It's aging versus maturity, and I think the best way to describe that was All the Dogs versus the Big Steppers. There was a video analysis where someone brought up how Drake's albums feels like he's aging, while Kendrick Lamar's albums feel like he's maturing, like he's trying to say something more meaningful and significant, while Drake is doing what he can to stay relevant and at the forefront of the game. But this comes at a cost of, well, portraying yourself authentically. So I think overall, when it comes to this entire beef, I think Kendrick Lamar has push the game for more quality music, and I'm so happy that an artist I've been invested for years on end is getting his flowers, and hopefully his new project has more eyes in it, because I think that Big Steppers is a sleeper of an album, and I don't think enough people understood what it was supposed to be. It wasn't a club anthem. It wasn't an album that was made to just break records. It was an album that was about peeling back everything that occurred in his past and bring it to the forefront of the lessons he's learned through therapy. And I would highly advise people listen to the Big Step. As for Drake, I don't know, bro. Tough shit.
I mean, Scorpion was a decent album from Drake. I'll give him that. It's like his older stuff, but it is what it is. Yeah, for Drake, it's tough shit for him type stuff, but
I don't know what it's. I do love some of his oldest projects. In fact, I'll even go as far as to say that if you're reading This Is Too Late, it's one of his best made albums. Everything for me afterwards
really,
is kind
you
of
think so?
Yes, yes. Melody.
That's the only album. All right, this is gonna be a hot take of me. It's the only album of his that are earlier that I'm like, yeah. Like it's weird because to me, like
Really?
it's good and stuff.
Wow.
No, here's my take. I don't think that album is bad. I just don't think it has good replayability. Like it's an album that I'd listen to like 2 or 3 times, but after that, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm kind of done with it. Like these are great songs, great lyrics, just not something I'd be listening on repeat and stuff like that. Like
That's
that'd be
crazy.
albums like
Huh.
Scorpion and stuff. Yeah,
What album do you believe has the most amount of replayability?
I'd say Scorpion. I think it's just because of like
Really?
nostalgia reasons mainly. Because there's a lot of that album connected to like me when I was like a teenager and stuff, like when that came out.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. That makes sense.
but like I already said earlier, I'm not really super huge into the rap scene. I'm gonna leave a lot of that stuff to like you or some of our guests we get on, like Slater. But it's yeah, from an outsider's looking at it, it's just my layman's take. But hey, really quick for the audience, we're gonna go on a short break and we'll be back shortly. So in the meantime, here's gonna be a sponsor from one of our guests, and I'll see you shortly.
Are you looking for a political solution with no political bias? Well, that is everything Purple Political Breakdown aspires to be. A gracious host who tries his best in his aspirations to find what solutions can be ascertained from the current political landscape, peeling back the more cultural war-oriented elements, getting to the heart of whatever these issues happen to be. I would highly recommend Purple Political Breakdown. Thank you for sponsoring this episode.
All right, guys, and we're back. So really enjoyed the conversation so far, and we thought it'd be a good idea for the fans to read some of your questions, comments, and requests for us. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys all have in store. So, as the questions are, it's directed to either myself, Hazy, or both of us, and I'm excited to get into this. So, the first question we have for this is actually both of us. So, to Hazy and Sola, would you guys rather be alive in 536 AD or 1349 AD? Well, I guess I'd be thinking about where in particular because different places have different settings. I wouldn't mind being around. Well, 13 isn't that around? When was that? Anything historical during that time? Do you know of, Hazy? So like the 14th century.
Yeah, I think I think mostly trying to think. There was a kingdom. I'm trying to think of it. Uh, they said 1336, right? AD, correct?
1349 AD, and the other one is 536 AD. So let me take a quick look up. Yep, that's what it is. Okay, so
No, I don't think.
1349 AD is listen to this.
Black.
1349 AD, yeah, is the
It's the
Black
Black
Death.
Death. I said, wait a minute, hold on. I said, I was taking.
Okay, that's actually a pretty sneaky one. I want to see what's happening around 536 AD though, because that's also a specific AD event. Let's see what we got here.
I mean, well, if I had the knowledge of myself in the current day, I would definitely pick
Oh,
the Black Plague
no.
because all I gotta do is watch
Listen
up.
to this.
The other
Listen to
one's
this.
just a volcanic event. The other one's just a volcanic event, like Krakatoa.
The year 536 AD is often cited universally by historians as one of the worst years to be alive as a human due to a series of catastrophic events that led to dramatic and prolonged periods of climate destruction and societal turmoil. So you had volcanoes, global cooling, widespread famine, the collapse of the
Yeah.
Byzantine Empire for a lot
I'm
of
saying, like,
part.
Exactly. All
Jeez,
you got to
that's
do,
horrible. Okay.
the countermeasure for the other one is just wash your hands and just be like smart. Like if I
That
had the
is
knowledge
true.
of
We do
me
have the
right
knowledge,
now,
you know?
all
Yeah.
I do is just wash my hands. The other one, I just what am I gonna do against volcanoes? Like what I'm gonna do? No,
Yeah, so
uh
I'm choosing the latter, the 13 one.
like would you rather have the flu of Pompeii?
Yeah. That was actually okay, that was actually a good one. I'm glad I actually looked up in that. Because I was like, these dates are very specific. Okay, so this is a question for Hazy. Hello, Hazy. Big fan of you. I love your artwork as well and your intros. They're very unique, and I've been watching them on the YouTube channel. Thank you, man. Hazy, which do you prefer? French cuisine, Italian cuisine, or Greek cuisine? And whichever one of these do you choose, do you see any American dish that beats them out, such as Louisiana barbecue or Southern cooking, etc.? I know it's a bit of a weird question, but I really enjoy it. Yours truly,
um
Tim Buchira. So that's pretty nice of him. What do you
Appreciate
think?
it. Thank you. I've been editing for the podcast for a long period of time, and I've hoped that I can do more experiments with things. I know that with a longer podcast, I try to keep it minimalistic, but hopefully I can do more ambitious things for the projects going forward. As for my particular palate and the type of cuisine I enjoy. I'm a big Italian fan. I'm a big. Actually, my favorite dish is lasagna.
Oh,
That's just
nice.
like my favorite, actually. I really genuinely enjoy that. As for dishes that I'm a big fan of, there's a I would have to say I'm a big how should I talk about this?
But overall,
Uh,
do you think there's any dishes that beat out like an entire cuisine? Because they're not. So, he wasn't asking like meals. He means like cuisine, like overall the entire palette, that
Cuisine.
culture.
Well,
So, like, if you were stuck to
I would
only
say
eat them, which one are you chilling with? Type stuff. It
if I
was
had to,
French, Italian, and Greek, and then American.
uh, I do love jerk chicken a lot. Sometimes
Oh, that
when
stuff
some of my
slaps.
relatives
Yeah.
come by, I just enjoy some really solid jerk chicken, and Jamaican cuisine is just really fine. So if I had to choose an alternative, that would be my go-to.
Yeah. Honestly, here's a bit of a hot take for me, and this is coming from like a Cuban background. But I know the question is for Hazy, but just to throw my hat in there a little bit, I love soul food. Soul food is amazing, and it beats
Yeah,
out any of these
Turkey.
like other dishes. Can't beat soul food. All right, let's see what's up next. Okay, this one is for me. Hey Sola, really glad you putting this project together. I've been enjoying the podcast and listening since the beginning of season 3. Oh, newer fan, thank you. What are some books on philosophy in regards to Christianity or politics that are your favorite and that you'd recommend to anyone new? So this was by Marie Christine. Okay. So let me think. I gotta think about what are some of my favorite ones because that's actually a really good question. Hmm. I'd have to say if we're talking philosophy books, I've recently finished reading Eusebius on Power and Nature. That was a really enjoyable look at like what is the view of the ancients, how they've used a lot of terms we use today. Um, a favorite book on Christianity would have to be City of God by St. Augustine. He does a very strong case on what it means to be a Christian and what it means to live a Christian life and to have like something as like Christian friendship or even the very term of what's unique in Christianity called agape love, which is like the highest form of purity of love you could bestow to your fellow man. So I definitely recommend that. When it comes to politics, I would say anything really of Christopher Rufo's works are pretty good for like modern politics. If you want to go political theory, though, I'm gonna have to point over to some of the works of Hans Hermann Hoppe because he does still, even though I'm not as much as a libertarian as he used to be, make pretty convincing arguments on that part when it comes to like the need and necessity of like actual smaller communities of like individualists. That's what I'd recommend for that. And oh, one more. This is a universal for all Christians. If you're a Christian and you want a case for what's known as mere Christianity, just Christianity as a whole, definitely read that book by C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. Very, very good book. But that's my question answered for there. Thank you, Mary, for that. A question for both of us. Hey guys, love your content. Some episodes you both seem a little bit burned out and tired. Yeah, that's amen to that. Are you guys doing okay mentally? Yeah, I'm doing fine. Chilling. I appreciate the ask. What about you? You doing okay mentally?
As one cites, the deeper bleakness of society often is incidental, coincidental in its nature. Sometimes the espousements of everyday existence and ongoings is knowing that by clear circumstance or potentially a happenstance, your existence is a byproduct of accidental occurrences that might arrive to the situations you find yourself here. Mentally, I think I'm pretty all right.
That's good to hear. Oh, here's a really good one. Hi, Hazy. One of the few female fans. Oh, come on. One of the few
Oh,
female
okay.
fans.
You ain't gotta say it
I
out
see how
loud.
you do
This
it.
is awesome, man.
That's dirty. Okay.
What do we even
Wait,
do?
it gets better
Okay.
though. No, it's actually pretty sweet. She says, "I'm one of few female friends, not saying it in a bad or derogatory way. I really enjoy hearing your voice. It's pretty calming. Also, my friends really like you a lot. Hit them up sometimes." Oh, and this person, of course, is anonymous that they sent this message.
Oh,
um,
okay.
so I guess that's for you, man. You got a female fan who showed you around some girls, and they kind of find you fancy. So you got a good voice. So keep it up.
What's fascinating about almost all of that is, well, the fact that I grew from a speech impediment, like early on, I had like the worst speech impediment. I would just speak with an absentee of R's within my language. And to hear people say that, that is an accomplishment. That is the collection of like my completest story of learning how to speak properly. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Truly, truly, thank you. You like me. You really like me.
That's nice. Okay, here's a question over to me. Hey Sola, I love the stuff you do. In the future, are you ever planning on hosting more debates on the channel? And how come you and Hazy aren't as combative if you guys are both differently politically affiliated? Okay, so it's a two-part question, and that's from Rex84. So I think, yeah, I know that guy. So my answer to that would be for the first portion. We are planning on the future, probably not even season 4, but season 5, to have two people who are already on the show. It's going to be people from the American Royalist, and it's going to be another guy. I'm blanking on his name right now for some reason. Who we did an episode with on Christian nationalism. What was that individual's name? I literally talked to that guy in a daily. He's gonna be so mad listening back to this recording. Uh, oh, I know I was blanking. Lucas. So it's gonna be Lucas and the American Royalists, and they're gonna be debating. It's mainly gonna be a Christian debate over what should Christians embrace, Christian nationalism or Catholic integralism. I know it's going to be more of a friendly debate. Both of them are really solid, good guys who wrote extensively on both of those. So that's my answer to that. My second one, why do Hazy and I not get as combative? No, I don't know. I think it's more of a testament to say, like, hey, just because people are different political affiliations doesn't mean I have to hate him or he has to hate me. And I think I've stated earlier, I'm not sure if we were recording or not because it's getting a bit late, that if you're a good person and I could genuinely tell you mean well in your politics, then I have no reason to hate you or like harbor any like resentment towards you. Because I've met tons of people who are like, far left who to me their politics are a bit extreme, but I could tell they have a really big heart. And I've met tons of people on the far right who same way, their politics are extreme, but they mean well. And just for my audience to know as well about me on this subject, last thing I'm going to pass over to Hazy if he wants to comment on this. Just because someone is in your atmosphere or believes your political beliefs doesn't mean you have to automatically like them and be their friends. Like, I'm not going to say any names, but I'm sure Hazy feels the same for his crowd. But I've known people on right wing circles who are genuinely scummy, despicable people who I would not even break bread with. And I'm sure it's universal. So don't think just because someone supports things you support that you're automatically have to be buddies with him. That's just unrealistic. Like, just be friends with who you want to be friends with and always follow what is of good intent and good compassion. But Hazy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, hopefully we do more like something akin to the philosophical question of evil. I think that was a really good experiment, and I hope we do something like that future, but there had to be a lot of moving parts we had to put together. I understand how much of a headache it is for Solar to get that many people together. And so understand that if we want to do that, but it's just getting the time together, and everyone has their own lives independent of content creation, especially if they don't do it as the mainstay of income. That out of the way, as to whether or not why me and Solar aren't as combative as people would have believed, I think it's just the fact that me and him, I think, understand a strong level of our beliefs. Well, at least I think both of us, for the most part, go into conversations with the belief that someone is being sincere with the beliefs, that they are not erroneously coming into the beliefs. There are absolutely bad faith actors out there, and they should objectively be called out. But me and Sola have had enough conversations where there is clearly an implication of language, and we do not stray away from what that implication is, and we just speak about it earnestly, which creates a obvious trust between the two of us that there's a sincerity between what we're obviously expressing and what we push back against. I've always been the person who in my family, in my immediate family, I've been a mediator for a lot of discussions amongst some of my family members. And as for political discourse, I've been someone who earnestly enjoys trying to mend or bridge gaps. So I don't think it would be productive to my nature as a person who is part of the political landscape to be antagonistic needlessly to people. And at the very least, if I were to do so, I want it to be understood as to why that the person in question I believe to be a bad faith actor and isn't worth entertaining, and why I'm being more meticulous and surgical about dismantling the person in question, which not only is Solo well read and very well versed in sound and his argumentation, so we always had those good back and forths. But I trust Solo to be an honest and good faith actor when he expresses these beliefs, despite how much I disagree with him. So that's why we're never like, "Hey, fuck you, man," when we talk about it to each other. That's exactly why.
Okay, let me see. Let me try to find one for both of us. Okay. Okay, this is both for Hazy and Sola. How far and ambitious are you guys planning on going with Requiem Radio? Okay. So, me personally, I say send it. Like, I'm okay doing this as long as I want to do it, and as long as I still have a deep passion for it. So, I am very passionate about doing this. It's something I find to be both therapeutic for me personally and helpful, and something that I could look forward to a lot for getting different guests on. And I always put it like this: even if Requiem Radio only got like the worst case scenario, like 2 listeners per episode, which is it never was. We're blowing up, guys. Our views are up. The stocks are booming, if you know what I mean. But if we even were to like to get low like that, I'd still keep doing it because I have a passion for it. But I want to eventually expand it more and more and reach out to more people. And I'm saying, hey, shoot for the moon, you know, because if you miss, you'd land with the stars. But what about you, Hazy?
Yes, I would love for this to get as big as it possibly can. Again, I am somebody who enjoys the conversations, discourse, and seeing as far as we can push it. As for as how long it can do this, I started off doing this because I genuinely have a passion for speaking and discussing things a long time periods, whether that be due to debates and my love of that, or just the political spirit and feeling as though there is something meaningful I can contribute. Those are the two reasons I kind of got into all of this. So at the end of the day, I'm doing it because I enjoy doing it first and foremost. And in terms of ambition of seeing where it can go from here, time will only tell, and I would love to push it as far as I possibly can. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, definitely. And oh my gosh, I'm tempted if I even want to read this question. Huh.
Go go ahead. It's for
No, this one's
go
for you
ahead.
now, and I'm actually it's gonna put you on the spot for a minute, and I'm curious
I
to see this. All right, this is question directed to Hazy. Hey Hazy, love your edits, man. Oh, second person shooting you out for that. I noticed before you said on a podcast that you are left leaning. What are
mm,
some political issues you think you could body Sola in a debate with?
body solo debate with
I like how you used the word body. I think I know who
body
this is too because they said it anonymous.
body is
Yeah,
so
what do you got? Where's some
hostile.
topics that you can body me, you can sleep me on? Put me in a coffin 6 foot under.
Hmm. I would say now I should pick something that has perfect grounding for us to have easy footing on, and I would say the current prevailing black issues in America.
Black issues in America. Yeah, I'd give you that one because I'm not fucking black. I don't know about that shit. It's like
Oh, yeah, no,
I'm not even
my
trying to
brother.
sound rude, but I'm kind of apathetic on that. Not because it just feels weird me like going around like not even being black talking about black issues. I'm like, that's not really why, you know? That'd be like if I see you white knighting around and talking about Cuban issues today. Like, what are you doing? Like,
You see, the thing is,
I'm not even trying to sound rude. I'm just a bit apathetic in that way, where it's like, I could support you from a distance, but I'm not gonna try to argue that stuff with you.
yeah, I can totally understand that due to some people speaking it very authoritatively in some regards, and some people who don't even live in America, like Dax, for instance, who talks about what's wrong with America politics and the land of the free, but you can't call somebody by the particular pronouns. I'm like, you're Canadian, shut up. You're Canadian. I'm tired of you Canadian. No one calls this man Canadian enough. And I need people to understand that some of these people who call themselves American commentators are not even American. But thank you for the antagonism,
Yeah, first
surely
I was trying to
season
provoke, and
four,
I'm like, yeah.
season four, the ripple,
Season 4, we're gonna be live streaming me and Hazy fight for charity boxing match, no rounds. It's like, how did we even get here?
Sponsored
All
by
right,
Happy
let's see.
Punch in G Fuel. Thank you, G Fuel, for that
Okay,
sponsor.
yeah, this is another message by Mary Christine. It's actually not even a question; it's a sweet one. She says to us, "I wish you guys every happiness and thank you for how far you've come. I thank you guys both for everything, and I hope your lives both continue to succeed and thrive. I'm inspired by both your wisdom and love and listening to what you have to say, and I'm honored to share that wisdom with you guys both."
Yeah.
Aw, thanks, Mary. That's really nice of
Oh,
you and kind.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Very
Okay,
humbling words. I
let's
appreciate
see.
it.
That's nice. Okay, this is a question for both of us again. This says, if you had a time machine, who would you want to go back in time to fight and why? Okay. I'll let you go first on this one.
If I had to go back in time and fight somebody, I'm not only looking for a W, but I'm looking for a W that will become iconic by all considerable frameworks. So think about it like this: I'm jumping up to the Dalai Lama, his weak and in
Oh, hell
malnutrition
no.
body, the skinny leather jerky bones that constantly are animated by his will to hate Jews. I'm right there in front of him, and I refuse to back down. Showing up with two knuckles, two of them, in fact, to decimate that man and
So you're
never
fighting an
explain as
old man who's like a hippie, basically, is what you're telling me.
it's going to be the story that is going to be spread around the world, globally, continentally. Dalai Lama gets dubbed in. I sent him, I sent him up the river. Now he jahiga. All right, enough.
Okay, for me, that's an easy one. Yeah, I'm throwing hands of Martin Luther and I'm whooping his ass. That's not even a question. There
What the
is going to be no
fuck?
rounds. It's going to be a street fight. Like
Mar-
his ass is going down. 95
Martin
pieces.
Luther, you
Nah,
mean
I'm gonna
King?
nail you. No, the Protestant one who founded Lutheranism.
Oh,
You're thinking of a different Luther, man. I'm talking about the one that was like in the 1500s.
black. You should have knew.
Bro, that's why I didn't say Martin Luther King Jr. I said Martin
Said Martin
Luther.
Luther. Said what?
I whoop his ass too because he's a communist, but that's a whole different story.
Oh,
But I don't have that big of a grudge against him. I mainly don't like Martin Luther, the OG one. You're in the background like, what the fuck? I like how you just said that like out of nowhere. I need to find that clip and save that because that's actually funny.
I
Oh
think
god,
it's yeah, but you think you got him? You think you yeah,
bro, I don't. It's not that I think I know. I'm putting him in a
Oh,
body bag and sending him down a river. That's all I'm gonna do. Like, I'm gonna literally just like annihilate him so hard. Protestantism will never be born. It's just total Catholic victory across the board, all the way, every day, 24/7,
yeah.
baby. Catholics run this shit. We're gonna
But
have the
I
Catholic Empire. Like,
see the reason why I picked the Dalai Lama is because I know that I have parting words for him for the beating that he will accrue from me. I'll come to him and be like, listen, Nevada is beautiful. Just before the encroachment of my left hook, I have it all thought out. The narrative.
okay, really quick.
So let's just like this man
So
say he gonna beat on the old
this
guy.
question, I'm gonna be real, man. This man roasted the fuck out of you. This question, I'm not even gonna lie to you.
All
Oh,
right, I'm willing. I'm listening
okay.
and willing.
It says Hazy's the type of guy to randomly spit out Sonic facts to you, and he probably plays Smash Bros. So you're the
You're
type of
correct.
guy to know
Yes.
Sonic facts and play Smash Bros.
Yes, and
Okay.
I'm waiting for the new Sonic generations. Yes, 100%. And my favorite character is
Okay.
Shadow. Yes.
All right. Wait, I think this is the same guy. I'm reading another one. Okay. Oh, hell no. Okay, yeah, this is the same guy. Solo's the type of guy to point to Hazy and say, I have black friends when being blatantly racist to someone. Okay, yeah, screw you, man. I'll have you know,
What
I
do
do
you
have
do?
black friends. His name's Hazy. Okay. Oh, gosh. These are actually pretty fun. I got a couple more, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up shop unless you want to, like, finish
Yeah,
something else.
we
Let me
can
see.
run through these and then we'll wrap up shop. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Sola, would you reprise your role as Ken in Barbie? And oh my gosh, Hazy, would you reprise your role as Blade in Blade? So I guess
All
you're
right.
Blade now. I
Actually,
mean,
Wesley
he's
Snipes
pretty
is like
cool.
a great and legendary actor. Who wouldn't want to be the Melanin King of the vampires? You know, just have some excellent dubstep music going on. You know, the Uzi guns. I love the movie series. I love the trilogy. Why? Who wouldn't want to be Blade? You get it. You're a plastic Ken doll, and I'm Blade. I like the exchange. Appreciate it. Thank you. I would absolutely 100%.
Nice, nice. Okay. That's a bit of a weird question. I'm not gonna read that one. Let me see what else we got.
Oh.
Oh, here's a good
when
one for both of us. It says
you say it's weird like that, that's like, oh, you just
no, it's just
rude.
asking us about our romance life. The question was basically like, have you guys ever fell in love? Which I'm like, it's weird, but I don't know.
Ah, all
Um,
right.
I'm not wasting my time on a weird question like that. Let's see. Which historical figure would you guys both want to sit down and have a pint with, and why? So it has to be one we both agree on that we'd want to drink with. Who are historical
Agree
figures
on
me and you could no agree on as
Vladimir,
in someone like a historical figure me and you both like that we could have a drink with?
Vladimir the Impaler.
Oh hell no, I hate that guy. He's weird.
What?
What about
Oh,
Napoleon? Dude, he'd kill us. Like we'd go to his place and he'd literally kill us. That's his whole shtick. Let me see. What about Napoleon? He's a cool dude.
Napoleon is actually, in terms of his aspirations and where he came from, he would just be, yeah, he would absolutely be a fascinating person to talk to.
Yeah, I like his quote. I saw the crown of France laying on the floor, so I picked it up with my sword. I always thought that was a pretty cool quote.
In terms of where he came from and how like much of his ambitions and aspirations led him to where he was, yeah, he'd be absolutely a prime choice. Definitely a dub. Definitely dubs in the chat. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, totally. Napoleon Dynamite.
Okay. This question is from Sadie84 again. Or not. Wait, is this like Rex's alt account? I don't know. Let me see. Sadie84 said, anyone who watches One Piece must be mentally retarded. That's all. That's the question. Well, it's not even a question, but yeah, like One Piece is garbage. Not gonna lie on that. So you got something
Oh,
right there.
all right. Okay. What does he listen to? I need a list. Let's see anime list, buddy. Let's pull it down. Let's
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I want to see what he has to say on that. Let me see. What else do we got?
watch him be a front runner and be like, "Oh, I watch Evangelion, thinking your lie." Lose.
Oh,
Go
here's
ahead. You
an
can.
interesting question for you.
Mhm.
It's a religious related question though. Do you want me to still ask it?
Yeah, go ahead. You're fine.
Okay. It says, "Hey Hazy, I watch Requiem Radio for Sola and his Catholic contents, but I also love your commentary as well. I think you're a really great guy who's admirable and stands by his belief. After listening to the Problem of Evil debate, I'd like to ask you, what's stopping you from being Christian, and would you ever consider being Catholic in the future? And has Sola brushed up on your views at all or changed your opinions in Christianity since you've known him?" That's a pretty long question, but yeah. That's from MCA
Okay.
1836. So
Hey,
yeah.
hey, MJ. In terms of my religious beliefs, it's always been one, primarily built around what I believe to be compelling evidence for the existence of the universe and how it came to be. While science has been flawed in its evaluation as to how that came to be, I still believe that there is enough evidence at the very least to say that what the Big Bang is, our understanding of the universe still laps on pretty accurately as to a proper explanation as to where we are and how we got here. As for exercise of my moral beliefs and principles, I believe that the prescription is absolutely one of virtuous, and I would say to anybody who happens to be religious that I can understand why the promotion of such things often accrue a better ideal version of yourself, and makes you inspired to do so due to a benevolent figure that is a guiding principle for all that. And understanding that, I always had a respect for Christians for doing that as in community, the existence for community, the desire for community, and it puts to bed a lot of existential aspects of society, life, living, and even afterlife beyond all that. And I suppose in terms of like the persuading, the big question as to what would drastically change my beliefs and ideas. I think if there was some revelation, like the Shroud of Trunic was the most fascinating thing for me because it was one of the
That was a
things that
good
was
episode.
used as
Yeah.
evidence as to the true existence of God and whether or not persons of biblical descriptions did exist. And so those are the type of things I'm always looking towards for like the existence of God and the things that if you're fascinating in changing my position on this type of things, I'm always looking for historical events that have occurred that beautifully like map onto society and the existence of it, as well as showing that what has been described in the Bible absolutely did occur on land and throughout history. So yeah, those are the things for me. At right now, currently as it stands, I don't really have a strong percentage, but it's more like a 20 to 80%. I'm still very agnostic in terms of the 80%, but I think that the Shroud of Trinity was a very fascinating episode for me, and that's why I was so fascinated about that, especially due to the inability to recreate anything that the Shroud of Trinity was, and that was compelling to me. That was extremely compelling to me. So an update on my beliefs on that aspect, and I think Sola and our guest that day to investigated who spent a lot of time investigating it extensively. Those are the people who have contributed probably the most in terms of looking towards more religious beliefs and the value as to what they mean for the overarching society and any change in my beliefs. So I hope that answers your question, but that's why I'm at
What
currently. I'm
about the
still like,
last portion he said for like the Catholic thing? Or is that just too specific? Or you'd say the same?
I would say that like in terms of
So
um,
like I guess weird question. Let's say that, you're like, I'm convinced I'm now a Christian. Would you be
I think
like
we
a
would have to.
Protestant, Eastern Orthodox, or like Catholic, or you haven't thought about it through enough?
I think I would. I think I would have to get past that big. I think I would have to get past that big boulder right there before I like start picking denominations and before I start going down a list of subsections as to what I would strongly prescribe to. But again, that's where I'm at right now. The other part is more. I can't answer that earnestly because I feel like I would have to get past the bigger hurdle of
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for the question as well.
No, it's a good question. And thanks for being honest on that. Okay, let's see what else. Someone said, Sola, please set me up with your friend. Heart, heart, heart. Okay.
I
Yeah, I'm sure if you reveal yourself, because this was sent anonymous, like, yeah, I'll do that. Why not? All right. Oh, here's one for me. In which way does your Christian faith motivate you in your everyday life and your outlook of the world? Let me think about that. So, for people who don't know, my mother was diagnosed with thyroid cancer when I was in high school, and that really messed with me deeply. And before that, I was Bible thumper Southern Baptist, and having that event happen to me really shattered and broke my faith to the point where I said, screw God, screw all of this, I'm going to be an atheist. And for a period of time, especially when I was in the military, because I went to military when I was 18, I was a very angry person, and I was very much having the belief that I don't care about anyone else. It's me, it's my one life. I'm going to do whatever I want. So I did engage in a handful of drugs. I did engage in with being around a lot of women, stuff like that, and alcohol. And at the end of the day, I felt very empty and hollow from all of that. And definitely something that changed my perspective a lot on actually taking religious more serious this time around was I had a very close friend in the military. He unfortunately passed away recently, but God bless his soul. He got me back to Catholicism and Christianity because I noticed he was a lot more mellowed out than I was, and I was envious of that. And during that time, it was in North Carolina. I was able to go with him regularly, attend to a parish, and it was, I believe, St. Augustine's Parish in North Carolina, around the Raleigh area. But Father Kane was the name of the priest. He was a very sweet, nice guy. And I remember every single time after service going up to him, just drilling him with any questions I had. That I basically was just regurgitating from Christopher Hitchens and a lot of the New Age atheists. That I filled my heads to make me feel validated of atheism. And over time, he basically showed that a lot of these arguments are pretty shit. And the church has already answered them hundreds of years ago, but in a friendly way. And basically just brought me back to the fold of a lot of that stuff. And over time, gave me a reading list of theological and philosophical people in the church. And I was convinced, I say theologically, of it to be true. But for my heart, emotionally, it was definitely the friends and family and circle I had around. And that's a thing, really quick, a bit of a side tangent people don't talk about when there's conversion. A lot of people treat, especially atheists, they treat it as if it's a game of just show me the evidence, just show me the evidence, I'll believe. I don't believe that's all you need, because I think it's a double-sided coin where to be Christian, you have to both commit with the mind and with the heart. So if you only go into it with just the mind and treating it as like it's a debate tool, you're not going to go far in Christian faith. If you treat it only with a blind faith approach, where it's like, oh, all I need is Jesus, not going to read anything else, ignore everything else, you're going to end up like what I was when I was a Southern Baptist and get stomped, basically, to where an event like my mother happening, getting cancer, really broke my faith. That's why I say to truly be a Christian is to have a blend of both knowledge, compassion, and mercy and for others. And I always try my best, although, God bless my soul, I fail on these things sometimes, to be a good Catholic, be a good Christian, and be more out forward and welcoming to other people. Because what I pray to the Lord is that all my family eventually become Catholic, and all my close ones and relatives I love deeply do as well. And at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of those people, they're not going to come to the fold because they're quote unquote convinced by a philosophical or historical archaeological argument. They're going to be convinced if it's purely from the heart, and like both the heart and the mind, because it can't be one or the other alone. But that's my overall thing. Definitely, I kicked a lot of bad habits I had in the military, and I just overall feel like a happier, better person. I'm a lot more laid back and calm because I was getting a lot of fights too, and I'm glad I'm not doing it anymore. But that's my take on that.
One of my favorite songs from Chance the Rapper, who is a Christian musician, happens to be I believe that if I die, I'll meet my homie somewhere in paradise. And I find that line to be so beautiful for a particular reason. It speaks to what I believe to be a prominent crux of what it means to be a person of faith. I spoke diametrically towards it earlier, but I think that um, for people of faith, of the cloth, whatever have you, it is the strongest component to being religious. Because after all, it's a faith, meaning an absence of something. And to believe in something is to not have definitive evidence that what it is or whether or not it will occur, but to devote yourself to an idea regardless of having definitive say or sway over whatever that might be. To me, I think the biggest comparison to that all would have to be how I perceive love at the end of the day. I could never imagine myself being with somebody that I didn't trust. And that trust doesn't come from an ability to surveillance them on a 24/7 basis or to them have informed me as to where they are all the time. Rather, it is believing and trusting that they love me and they wouldn't do me any harm. I think that is probably the biggest expression of love there is for your significant other and the person you're with, that you can trust without knowing wherever they are or constantly being given messages, but the trust to know that the feelings that you guys have for one another is mutual and the bond that is inseparable. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another thing that people mix up with faith as well, that I'd say, is that when Christians are talking about faith, that doesn't mean stick your head in the sand and be oblivious to thing and not pursue it because you're afraid it'll challenge your, Christian faith. What having faith means, as in trusting in things that are beyond human reason and comprehension. So, an example, like in the Catholic Church, we have the divine mysteries. And we are considering these things like mysteries that are beyond our full human comprehension, that we take a faith of God that was taught to us. So, an example is like Christ in the Last Supper, where this is my bread, or this is my flesh, and this is of my bread. This is my blood, and this is of my wine. Where that is partaking in Holy Communion for Catholics. That's the sacraments. And we have things like transubstantiation, which basically means that it becomes the literal body and blood of Christ, but it still maintains its accidents. And that gets into Aristotle and stuff. But even so, there's things you can never fully understand of our level of human reason. It's like asking someone, what is the sixth dimension like? It's just not something we could comprehend. And that's why I says definitely, like I said earlier, it's both mind and like a heart. So the heart is relying on those things that we know we can never fully know. The mind is being passionate enough to pursue and learn more about these things that we get sharp enough. So like read early church fathers, read philosophers, etc., etc. Let me see what else we got. Let's go ahead and through 3 more questions because I know we're getting a bit late, and then we could like have some wrap up closing comments.
All right.
So
Sounds good.
okay, next question to Hazy. Hazy, are there any people on social media, any platform that you have serious beef with or have beef with in the past?
I am a new person. I don't wish any ill will on anybody in particular. I might have my animosity about particular subjects or people that I've had fallings out with, but I'm on a new avenue, and if I am to make any criticisms of their behavior or conduct, I would make it public. And the best I could ever hope for is that person to better themselves and not wish the worst for themselves. I don't have anybody in particular because to prescribe that idea feels like I'm preying on someone's downfall, which for the most part, there's nobody that I'm thinking that way with. So I won't say anything directly here.
That's fair enough. Okay. And here's a question for me. Let me open it up right now. It's loading. Sorry about that. Sola, do you have any enemies? Okay. I see you saying that. All right, sure. I know who sent that. The answer to that, you already know my answer. I have no enemies besides Satan. He is my only enemy. So there's my answer.
Oh, brother, this man thinks he's Thorfinn.
I'm literally him. Okay. All right. That's actually a good question. So, okay, this one interesting. 1 minute. Let me pull it up because it's taking a minute to load. This is from Tall Foz. Okay, Tall Foz says, "Hey, Requiem Radio crew, love your guys' content. Thank you. I noticed that a handful of episodes are done solo by Sola. Pun intended. Okay, thank you, asshole. Are you planning to have Hazy doing any solo episodes in the future? And how come Hazy's been missing a couple episodes as well? Is that accidental? Thank you guys so much. Love your content." So I guess that's a question of like, are you planning on doing solo episodes? Like, if you want to, I'd allow you to do that for the platform. If you ever want to do
There
that.
might be an episode that will be coming out potentially. Potentially, there's an episodes in the works that I fumbled the bag on in terms of the recording. Definitely
Hey,
an
don't worry.
AOL
Yeah, I
advocate when it
fumbled
comes to
you.
technology, when it comes to recording. But hopefully, maybe the episode will come back soon, and you'll be able to hear it. In terms of why Sola is sometimes recording episodes without me, he'll start up a recording and be like, "Craig, don't tell Hazy I'm recording right now," and that's usually why uh, no one hears these episodes in particular. I hope I greatly informed you as to why. He usually tiptoes to his computer, even though we live in completely different states, to not awaken me because I'm
Yeah,
by
I
the
look left,
smallest
I
of
look
noises.
right, I look back down at my computer. I'm like, okay, he doesn't know. Jokes aside, though, for people wondering why Hazy isn't on some episodes, at the end of the day, both myself and him do have a life outside of this, and sometimes he has personal family stuff comes up, and likewise for me, I have personal family stuff coming up. Like an example, this episode today, is currently midnight right now for our time, and we were supposed to record at 8, and that was my fault because I had a family issue come up where I had to take someone to reschedule. It says, Hazy, we're doing this at like 9:30. So it happens. Life happens, guys. That's how it is. But yeah.
True. Yeah. We tried our best to always kind of be a dual package, but I'm happy to have a companion who's working on this show, who's a person who can definitely hold the reins on himself if need be. We don't, idealistically, we do not want that to be the case, but I think both of us are sound at interviewing enough that if there was ever something that was to occur, we can do a sufficient enough job. So.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, I think I said this earlier to podcast, but we are under Pod Nation right now, meaning that we don't have the luxury, if you will, of rescheduling for a guest last minute if either myself or him are missing. So I believe at this point, if it was season 1, I'd say hell no. But I'd say at this point, we're both more than capable enough as ourselves as individuals to interview guests by ourselves. So if, let's say, I was sick and Hazy had to cover down, I'm sure he'd knock it out of the park. And I'm sure he feels the same about me in that as well.
Exactly. So thank you for the question. To let you know.
Yep. And we got.
I promise you, the next episode I start off. If there is ever a solo episode, I'm gonna make sure to inform the guest in question to not tell Solo. So he doesn't.
Okay, we got 2 more questions left. Okay. This one is, both of them are for both of us. Okay, that's cool. All right, so this question right here, let me go ahead and get this one up. This is from Raphael Bisman. Okay. Hi, guys, it's Raph. I just want to know, by any chance in the future, are you guys planning on being other platforms? Also, have you guys ever thought about interviewing each other for an episode? Solo interview, quotation mark, solo interview, Hazy interviews, solo, vice versa.
That'd be fascinating. That's a
I mean,
fascinating idea. But usually, when we do these kind of like open pilot episodes for each seasons, we're kind of just ping ponging off each other like that. So
that's usually what the pilot's for. It's just us like throwing around ideas and stuff, ping ponging. But I know Hazy is going to be on Classical Odyssey's show. I don't know the dates and times for that. And because she has an open invite for both of us. And yeah, what I'd love more than anything is to see both myself and Hazy be on our platforms. And I'm also okay if us being single episodes on our platforms. Like, let's say if I'm busy, Hazy has an opportunity to get on someone's show. I'd love to hear that from him. All more power to like us because it's Requiem Radio that benefits. I'd also like to as well in the future, if we ever get to doing it, like scheduling like a debate thing where it's like me and you versus like 2 other people, like tag team
oh
stuff.
yeah, I think that would be quite the duo. That's gonna be.
We'd
I
actually
would
have
love
to
that.
like deep dive and think like what's something that we could both agree enough, passionate enough where we could debate and defend it. But there's
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
I mean, yeah, I
It'd be a
wouldn't mind in
men's
the
right.
future if we did like a fun episode where you like interviewed me and stuff like that, or vice versa, where I interviewed you.
Yeah, dude, that'd be kind of interesting idea. Like later down the line.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to Classical Odyssey, hearing you on that one because that should be fun. But let's think what
Yeah,
else.
absolutely. That was fun. So I can't wait to do another one.
Definitely. Okay. Okay, here is our last question, and we can just shoot the shit for a minute and then close up shop. So this one is from Lotus Flower. Okay. Lotus Flower asked, "Hi guys, I really enjoy your content. I'm curious if we will ever hear from the other people on the your team." Oh, it's talking about Noah and Liminal. If they ever want to be on shore, like I wouldn't mind introducing them. That's fine by me. Maybe in the next season.
yeah.
And
We've
the
spoken about this
follow up.
prior before.
What's up?
So like I said, yeah, we spoke
Yeah,
about
we
this prior
mentioned this
before. Yeah.
before. Yeah, they both just volunteered to be like, not yet, but maybe next season. And the follow up question: are you guys currently have any opening positions for editors, or do you need any help on that? Okay, thanks, Lotus. I'd have to ask my editor team, so maybe I could talk about that offline. Or what do you think? Like, you guys need any help on anything? A 5th person,
I think we do. We'll probably look into it, and I'll probably hit back or relate to that person for open position about it. But for now, I think we're just focusing on we got mostly shops set up, but I'll definitely look into it. It's always interesting to expand the team, and in the future that happens to be the case, I'll definitely let them know. Actually,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's it for that one. Nice.
thank you for all your questions. By the way, thank you for taking the time to type with your fingers. Put flesh to keyboard or flesh to machine. 40K is basically what I'm saying is inevitable future. Again, I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm glad this episode went as smoothly as it did. We've had always glad that you guys send us questions. I do appreciate it when you guys do that as well.
I'm surprised by how many questions get sent too. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised. I was surprised as well. I appreciate all the compliments and all the wishes that we got throughout them as well.
And mind you, we got through like 2/3 of them. There's another third that are just like random shit post questions I didn't even read.
Understandable. But yeah. Any
All
closing
right.
thoughts, Solar?
No closing thoughts. I'm looking forward to the future. I'm looking forward to having more gets on, and I think we're gonna have a great time.
All right. For me, that's everything for me personally. As usual, this is Hazy Dialects, and you've seen this all in HD.